I mean, once you see him standing on the sidelines and it looks like he's laughing and then he's cutting and everything and he's back up and spry and springy and I'm like, we're so back. Like, right. I want you to put the word out there that we are back up. And I mean, it happened in the course of a couple minutes, but like, dude, I mean, I saw some national people that are obviously watching the game because it's Monday Night Football. I mean, dude, I saw the Simba Mufasa, like, get up. I saw somebody doing that one. I saw somebody else, I think it was Charles McDonald, that just like posted the word no. And I mean, I'm looking at it and like everyone is like truly, I think we're all collectively across the NFL landscape thinking, wow, he might be done. And like Carson Wentz is warming up on the sideline. And then we come back from commercial break and everything's fine. It was, I mean, not good for my heart. Okay. Like, I mean, good for my heart, but not good for my heart. It was any win probability chart was happening.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Yeah, that's right, folks. The show is called Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, a guy that's probably been written in on many a ballot before, is Dirkness.
So,
I mean, not a lot. It's Tuesday, November 5th. We're about 7 p.m. here on election night. I feel like,
Are we getting to the polls? Are we getting to the polls?
Nothing else on my mind at all while I sit here and talk Chiefs football with my good friend, his Dirkness. Dirk, I think that we should maybe spend our first 15 in honor of Andy and really wanted to come out and throw the ball. Our first 15 on number 15 here, Patrick Mahomes. What do you say?
We're gonna script these first 15 minutes. Is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, after a game like that, it was his best game of the year, was it not? Patrick Mahomes had his best game of the season last night.
Yeah, well, I think that's the general consensus. I would almost argue last week was. I think he was just as good last week. But his last 2 weeks have been by far his best two performances, I would say. And you know what? I mean, with the injury that happened, that was just very traumatic for all of us. Because, I mean, basically nothing that this team can do over the next, 10 weeks now or whatever's left in the regular season really matters up until we get to the playoffs, unless we encounter a major injury like that. I mean, that's the kind of thing that can ruin the season. Losing to the Bucs, that's not going to ruin the season. We can still easily bounce back, still get the 1 seed, obviously still win the Super Bowl. But, man, when you see him getting carried across the field like he was, and then right before they go to commercial, because I'm thinking in the moment, I'm thinking he's done. And I rewatched it today to kind of figure out like why I thought that. And they show him like kind of getting picked up right before they go to commercial, and he's shaking his head very slowly, just like he knows something, like, man, I can't believe it. And I think I feel like the general consensus was like torn Achilles. And man, eyes on the TV screen when they're showing that replay from the backside, and people have got smart enough to think where you can see the Achilles now. If that thing snaps, you can see it roll up. And I think everyone just gets right up next to their TV screen and is like, oh my God, please don't roll up. Please don't roll. And you're like, okay, we're good there. The Achilles is good because that's an automatic season ender. And then we just come back from commercial, and he's jogging and he's smiling and he's cracking jokes with Andy on the sideline about coming back in. And all of a sudden we just completely forget about it. We've kind of been here before with Patty. He likes to be dramatic about these injuries a little bit sometimes. But man, what a scare from him. Well, I mean, what were your thoughts when he gets injured before we dive into his performance once he comes back here?
Dude, I couldn't process it. Like, it felt like, when Michael confesses that he has had a vasectomy and then had it reversed and then had another one and had it reversed. He's like, snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. That's kind of like how it felt a little bit in that moment, because I was like, I saw Mahomes say, like, I'm fine. That's what I read on his mouth was I'm fine. Like at the very kind of first shot of him on the ground.
Which was the reason. Sorry, it was the reason I went back and rewatched because nobody else said that, and I was like, I don't remember him saying that, and I wanted to see if he said it, and I saw him. What looked like he said, "I'm fine." It was like the first thing. He's like down, holding his head, and then he kind of rolls over and looks up, and he does look like he says, "I'm fine." Which if his ankle, he would know at that time. He would know if his Achilles had snapped, obviously, and he knows that it's just re-injuring his ankle, which isn't a season ender. It's just going to be nagging him for the rest of the game and for a few weeks here.
Well, when they are literally carrying him across the field and he's not putting any weight on it and just all the facial expressions and everything, I'm like, it's just getting worse and worse the more that I see it. I peaked way up here at I'm fine, and then it's just going further and further down as he's going across the field. And I mean, they end up like going to commercial, and it's like, all right, I'm looking at Twitter, and hey, Mahomes is in the blue medical tent, and I'm at that point in the sunken place. I am in the darkest, deepest, depressive state because I'm seeing some of the worst images that I've had to see in Mahomes' career, and then I start to spiral. Okay, so Mahomes is out for the rest of the season. Election night's tomorrow. This is going to happen. Like I'm worst case scenarioing everything in my life at that moment.
Well, we still have the trade deadline. We still had the trade deadline. We could have traded for Derek Carr and got him in here and saved the season that way.
Yeah. He definitely wouldn't lose to all 32 teams, though. If we had Derek Carr playing quarterback, we would beat the Raiders the next time that we played.
An amazing stat. I love that stat.
No, I mean, once you see him standing on the sidelines and it looks like he's laughing and then he's cutting and everything and he's back up and spry and springy and I'm like, we're so back. Like, all right. I want you to put the word out there that we are back up. And I mean, it happened in the course of a couple minutes, but like, dude, I mean, I saw some national people that are obviously watching the game because it's Monday Night Football. I mean, dude, I saw the Simba Mufasa, like, get up. I saw somebody doing that one. I saw somebody else, I think it was Charles McDonald, that just like posted the word no. And I mean, I'm looking at it and like everyone is like truly, I think we're all collectively across the NFL landscape thinking, wow, he might be done. And like Carson Wentz is warming up on the sideline. And then we come back from commercial break and everything's fine. It was, I mean, not good for my heart. Okay. Like, I mean, good for my heart, but not good for my heart. It was any win probability chart was happening.
It goes to show the real MVP of this Chiefs dynasty, which is Bobby Stroop, which has Mahomes' body in weird shape where he seems very unathletic times. He's just falling down in the backfield randomly. He seems to be rolling an ankle about every 6 weeks. And yet he can play on it and not get seriously hurt at the same time. I mean, he comes back from his kneecap being in the back of his knee, came back in like 3 weeks. So it's clearly something magical is going on with Mahomes' body, which also goes on with Mahomes when it matters most. So this is something that we kind of dove into towards the end of last week, per usual, a week ahead on these national storylines involving the Chiefs. But Patrick Mahomes, when it matters most, we went through the ratings last week by quarter. This is from the first quarter on, 66, 102, 63, and then 123 in the fourth quarter. That went up a little bit. Rating by down. First down, 80. Second down, 84. Third down, 113. The EPA ranks, if you're into the nerdy stuff, per down. He was 22nd on first down, 19th on second down, and first on third down, where second place is actually closer to 11th place than it is to first place, which is Mahomes. So he is the king on third down. He is the king of the fourth quarter. How about when he's ahead, and the Chiefs are ahead, he has a 79 passer rating. When they're behind, he has a 102 passer rating. How about in overtime games? Patrick Mahomes is now 8-2 in overtime games, 6-0 in the regular season. His two losses, 2018 AFC Championship versus the Patriots. He never touched the ball. and the one anomaly of his career when he did touch the ball, the 2021 AFC Championship game versus the Bengals. And then the final stat here before I get to dive deeper on some third downs. No other team in NFL history has won 8 straight games in which they trailed in the second half. That's including regular and postseason, which just goes to say once again that you might think there's better quarterbacks out there. They might have better highlights. They might have MVPs. They might have better stats. But when it matters most, Patrick Mahomes is the best fucking quarterback in the NFL by a fucking mile.
Yeah, I mean, I'm well said, his Dirkness. And if you want to look at just some of the specifics from last night, I mean, they've probably been recycled 100 times over by now.
Let's hear him again.
I was at one point, before the last couple drives, he was 11 of 11 passing on third down until what felt like, kind of an unceremonious end with the Samaje Perine drop on that screen that may have been a touchdown. 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter. All 3 of his touchdown passes came on third down. He threw the first fourth quarter touchdown in a tied game of his career. That really jumped out like, wait, what? So he's basically never really tied in the fourth quarter. He's either winning or losing, but never tied. But my God, man, I mean, it's like the Chiefs had 10 points entering the fourth quarter and ended the game with 30. I mean, he was, apart from, the 2 3 and outs to end regulation, when you maybe kind of sort of felt like they had a chance to put the game away, I just thought that for a lot of this game, Mahomes was flawless. It's the first game of the season. He hasn't turned the ball over. The Chiefs still lost the turnover battle because we're the Chiefs. But I mean, he goes without throwing an interception. He almost had 300 yards passing. He's got 3 touchdowns. I thought he was really wonderful. And yeah, you're right. He is without a doubt, without any question, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's the best player on the planet. And the fact that anyone even thinks it's worth our breath or time on this planet making an argument to the contrary is ridiculous.
But is he the scariest? Is he the scariest? They have to put the term scary on there to try and talk themselves into the Ravens somehow being scarier than the Chiefs. I'm not really so. The only thing he might be downgraded on last year is kind of taking some sacks. I took 4 sacks. I don't have the stat in front of me, but it was like the first.
Are you talking about in the Monday night game? Yeah, he did get sacked 4 times. I will keep in mind though, one of those was on the last play of the first half. Just kind of stretching it out, whatever. Another weird thing on those sacks. Did you notice that all 4 sacks came from defensive tackles?
It was, because I went back, because we're going to get into Wanya Morris later, and I was wanting to see what his role was in any of the sacks. NFL Plus actually has a great thing. I've just gotten into the last couple of weeks where you can pull up like individual plays, so you can just watch his 4 sacks repeatedly, but not on Wanya whatsoever. But yeah, it mostly came from the interior, which was interesting. An interesting game from the KCI, the Kansas City interior, who was kind of getting pushed around in the first half by Vita Vea, who was all over the place, and getting these sacks, and then towards the second half of the game where they just start running the ball at will up the middle and just those 3 just plowing the Bucs defense over and over. But back to Mahomes real quick, just talking about his third downs here. I mean, even when we weren't scoring early on, it was, Xavier Worthy kind of on the sideline, not getting his feet down, a Travis Kelce fumble in there. So it's like the 10 points going into the fourth quarter, it wasn't really on Mahomes other than those sacks. But I wanted to talk about third downs real quick. Because the Chiefs are now at 53.2% for third downs on the year. That's the best through week 9 since 2011. Actually, the only team to finish higher than that since 2011 is the 2021 Chiefs. I think there's only like 5 teams since 2011 to finish above 50% on third downs. That's kind of the very high watermark. If you're above 50%, you're doing very good. The Chiefs are actually 24 of their last 34 from the last 2 weeks. That's 71%. Mahomes in those 2 games is 20 of 24 for 18 first downs, plus 2 first down scrambles. He's just right now on fire on third down. And this is kind of, I think, what this Chiefs team wants to look like come playoff time. Like, this is when they clean it up, tighten up some of those mistakes, like the Kelsey fumble. You don't want to see stuff like that, obviously. But you have this strong defense team. You have this strong running game that you can bank on. And then you have Mahomes when it matters most, which is what we're getting to. Him on third downs, him in the fourth quarter, winning you football games.
Well, and, he's also really clutch, like, as he gets into those colder months. I mean, he used to be essentially flawless in September, but Mahomes just really seems to have, like, an eye for the moment, but just trying to make the case that last night, just because suddenly we are in November, Mahomes wanted to have his best game of the year. He posted season highs for completions at 34, completion rate at 77%, 3 passing touchdowns, that's his highest of the year, highest passer rating of the year at 116.8, and again, also his first game of the year without an interception. Thank you to Ron Kopp for accumulating all of those bests of the year. He's really on your corner with the bests there, his Dirkness. I don't know if you need to corner Ron Kopp here during this break.
Or it'll be the worst.
All right,
it'll be the worst night of his life, I'll tell you that.
You are not threatening. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Well, now what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience that same feeling? Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of a professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision and style every time. Head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code KCSports for 20% off plus free shipping. With the Chairman Pro, I could tell my confidence was boosted, and it has incredible versatility whether I wanted a clean shave or a little bit of stubble to look clean as well. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code KCSports at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code KCSports at manscaped.com.
Folks, if you're looking for a big way to make an impact here in Kansas City, I have a suggestion for you. You're listening to Amateur Hour. You're constantly logging into KC Sports Network. You care about this town. Well, the best way to show support for us and some of the things that we care a lot about is to partner with our partners this year, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Whether it's sponsoring a sports team or a sports league, or if you just want to try to put some money out there for marketing, you can actually promote your business in the metro while helping local kids. Simple thing. All you got to do, send an email, giving@helpkckids.org. They'll get all the information that you need. And we'd really appreciate the support.
And if you find yourself coaching from the couch during the games, you should consider coaching from the sidelines as a volunteer with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Learn more on how to do that at helpkckids.org.
All right, Dirk, coming out of this break,
it was a good scripted 15. It was a good, nice job.
Yeah.
Well executed, yeah.
Well, listen, man, there's something that happened in last night's game. And I feel like I had an epiphany, right? Like a light bulb moment, a sudden realization. And I believe that I'm going to try to make the case here that not only does the Kansas City Chiefs, they believe in Kareem Hunt. Okay. The Chiefs believe in Kareem Hunt. And I don't know if I really knew that prior to last night. Those of you that follow the boss here at KC Sports Network have probably seen the Kareem Hunt carries stat that he, talking about the number of times over the last 4 games that he's had over 20 carries, how long it's been since he's had 20 carries. Some really impressive work for, 29-year-old Kareem Hunt. But here's the thing, folks. Last night, the Chiefs were, honestly, absolutely struggling on offense. They had 10 points. We're sitting here looking at the clock thinking, God, man, the Bucs have given up 34 points a game over their last 4. And why do we have 10? We know that we've got these injuries and things. But here's why I believe the Chiefs offense was struggling. In the first half, the Chiefs ran 37 plays, and only 7 of them were Kareem Hunt carries. Now, don't get me wrong, they did have a couple other handoffs, one to Carson Seal, one to Pirine, but we're still talking about like 28-9 in favor of the pass, which, Andy likes to do, right? But this Chiefs team has been a run first, grind it out. And I don't think they were having much success in the first half running. And obviously, you got your new toy out there with Hopkins, and they were really getting Kelsey involved. Unreal volume for Kelsey in this game. But ultimately, after a really embarrassing pass punt to open up the second half on the Chiefs' first possession, they finally decide that they're going to get back to running the ball. And we get like what I'm going to call the Kareem Hunt drive. And on this drive, I feel like I realized like this dude is the Chiefs' offensive identity right now. And whether he will be that, come January or whatever, I can't say. But like right now, this stretch of the Chiefs season, Kareem Hunt running the ball, it's really, I think, like what is maybe the most important thing that they can do on offense. And I know that we have Patrick Mahomes. We just spent 15 minutes talking about Patrick Mahomes. But folks, the Chiefs had negative 12 yards on their first drive in the second half, and they had 10 points in the game. And suddenly Kareem Hunt has 7 carries for 47 yards on that drive. He had 7 carries in the first half and then had 7 on a scoring drive. The following drive, he had another 8 carries. The guy had more carries, had twice as many carries in 2 drives as he had the entire first half. And both of those drives, the Chiefs drive down the field, no problem at all, scoring touchdowns. I mentioned that he had 7 first half carries. He had 15 carries on the 2 touchdown drives, 3 more on a 3 and out before the end of the half. In overtime, the Chiefs run 10 plays. Kareem Hunt has 5 of them. Once they start going back to him and they start kind of leaning on that interior, the KCI, I think the Chiefs find their success again. And we mentioned that they had 10 points going into the fourth quarter and they end the game with 30. And during that time, dude, in the Chiefs' final 3 scoring drives, Kareem Hunt had 18 for 91 and a touchdown. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes in clutch moments. The Chiefs got away from the run, and when they got back into it last night, it's like they found themselves. It's like their offense had the epiphany because suddenly everything seemed easy for them because they were committed to handing the ball to Kareem Hunt. And I have been kind of slow playing this idea that Kareem is their offensive identity, but man, when they went to him on the 7 carries for 47 yards on that touchdown drive, there were only 2 other positive plays apart from Kareem Hunt. It was like an 8-yard catch for Kelsey and then a 7-yarder for McColl on 3rd and 6 after he'd been knocked out of the game in the first half. Really important play for the Chiefs, underrated play in that game. And then
he slips. He kind of slips. He slips, and you think it's like, oh no, McColl's gonna fuck this up, and then McColl regains his footing and then dives for the first down. That was nice.
Yeah, shout out to McColl, clutch play there. But that entire drive was basically Kareem Hunt. It provided a much needed reset for the offense, propelled them to have another 15-play drive, touchdown drive the next time they got the ball. The entire game flipped because of that Kareem Hunt drive, and honestly, I think that's why they won. They decide on this one drive, we're going to be stubborn about it, and we're going to keep going back to Kareem. And dude, he's still, 4 consecutive games now over 20 carries. And although he does look tired, I get, and he should be. He's earning every bit of it right now. God, man, once they give him the ball, he looks fantastic. He really does. The way that he's running so hard. And it's like it's their best card that they have to play, I think.
Kareem Hunt was a warrior last night. And I don't throw that word around lightly. I used to always break it out for Tamba Hali because I just thought he brought it play after play, snap after snap, rush after rush on some bad Chiefs teams. And he was a warrior about it. I'll never forget him all covered up in blood in that Colts game. But Kareem Hunt last night, and we're getting to that overtime drive, like we're riding him so hard, and we almost had to do it out of necessity because the rain picks up, it gets nasty out. You speak about that first drive when Mahomes is still healthy, but then after that, injures the ankle, and he's clearly ginger on it, like he's not able to really escape the pocket and do stuff. So that just leads to more of a run-heavy type of offense. Like, okay, this is what we got to do now. Like, we don't want to further his injury. Mahomes is in a tough spot out there. It's slippery surface. Like, you don't want him with a bad ankle out here running around or doing anything like that. So really had to lean on that running game, which they did from that drive, which you mentioned, which started with 5:50 left in the third quarter. They're down 7 at that point and kind of stalling out on offense. They just kept the ball from the Buccaneers for the rest of the game. Time of possession from that moment on, Chiefs 21-44. The Buccaneers under 5 minutes at 4:58. So just absolute ball control. 3 different touchdown drives that are completely carried by the run with a couple 3 and outs there, where they're, the box is stacked against them and they get shut down the run. And then at the 22nd left drive where they don't get down and get the field goal. Outside of that, leaning on the running game. And as he's getting to overtime, like they're getting down to the goal line, and I'm like, man, can they keep giving it to him? Because I'm just looking at him, and the dude looks dog tired out there. And I'm like, man, give him a play or something. And then there he is, back to the backfield again. Okay, we'll throw it or something, like get a little screen to Kelsey, maybe give him a playoff. Nope, right back to Kareem again. And the dude's just getting hit, plowing ahead for yards. An absolute warrior game from Kareem Hunt. And it's wild to see. I mean, I think people are kind of catching on, like they think the Chiefs' strategy is, they're going to get Pacheco back here in, 3 weeks or so, and they're just going to ride Kareem as hard as they can until they get him back because he, as you say, he is their offensive identity right now. I don't know if they really trust Steele. They kind of gave him the ball on that 3rd and 1, the most obvious fullback dive coming you'd ever seen. I see Steele running the game and Kareem stays in the game, and I turn to her Dirkness and I go, they're going to do the fullback dive play. And she continues to look at her phone and doesn't care. I probably didn't hear me at all, but I did say the words, here comes the fullback dive play. Everybody had to know it. It was the least surprising play call of all time. I called it with 35 seconds left on the play clock. But it looks like you should have picked it up from the overhead field. It's like kind of like one-on-one. It's just like, man, put your head down and, get that yard. So then what do they do on 4th down? They give it to Kareem and he picks up that yard. So just a warrior performance. And it's just so happy for him, man, because he has to feel like the emotions going through him where, I mean, he has to feel somewhat like he let the team down. It's not like, the Chiefs have had their fortune, so it's not like he cost us too much in there, but I'm sure he does feel like a personal responsibility, like I should have been here the whole time, winning games with these guys and all this. And for him to kind of come back and be able to play this hero role, it's just a great narrative for Kareem Hunt. And he was absolutely awesome last night.
It's kind of written in the stars, right? Like I believe that's kind of like where we were at when the Chiefs first signed Kareem. We're like, listen, man, if they're selling rights to the movie or whatever, like they're really setting up these excellent storylines at running back with Pacheco getting hurt, and now you're down to Carson Steele, undrafted free agent, with the fumbling issues too, right? And then also you get Kareem Hunt in here, and he has the redemption story arc. Whoever ends up outlasting the other, it doesn't really matter. These guys are contributing, and it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, to really try to put a finer point on it, from that tweet that BJ put out this morning, Kareem Hunt hadn't had 20-plus carries in back-to-back games since his rookie year in 2017, and he's now had 20-plus carries in 4 straight games. This is hard to fathom. I bet if somebody wanted to do a deep dive, they could figure out that I would be very, very surprised if Andy has given 20-plus carries to more than like Jamal Charles and Brian Westbrook. Specifically, like, are we talking 20-plus carries in 4 straight games? How many times has Andy ever given one running back 20 carries in 4 straight games. Like, it's rare stuff for Kareem. I think it's probably rare stuff for Andy too. Kareem hadn't carried the ball 20 times in a game since 2020. I mean, we're asking him to do things that frankly no one has asked him to do in a long time. And he's game for it. He's here for it. It's like we have gotten to this place of admiration because it's like he is truly putting his body on the line. That's the way that he plays. I just watch him and I'm like, you're not going to enjoy getting out of the bed in the morning when you're like 45, right? Let alone,
tomorrow, today.
Yeah,
he's not going to enjoy.
Right? Yes, that's true. Today. But, we're talking like well away from the game, and you're going to be one of those guys, it's like he's fighting for his life, the way that he plays. And in so many ways, that's why I look at him as almost like this team's offensive identity, because the Chiefs have that target on their backs. They are fighting for their lives. And don't get me wrong, it's good to be the Chiefs. All right, we've won back-to-back Super Bowls. We're the only undefeated team in the league right now. They have something like a 70-something% chance of getting the 1 seed, and we're only halfway through the season. Like, I'm not complaining about being a Chiefs fan, but truly, they are fighting, right? And it really leads to this idea, I think, Kareem Hunt being a fighter, the Chiefs being fighters, like how close and difficult some of these games have been. It's leading to now this national narrative that the Chiefs are not impressive, that they're not impressive enough, that they're not winning by enough or whatever. And we've been kind of tinkering with this a little bit here and there because we want to see more from this offense. But Dirk, I think it's time to just lean into it. This idea that the Chiefs win unimpressively. I saw you talking about this before the game. What are your thoughts on this idea of winning unimpressively?
I'm enjoying the dialogue along the way, and I also think it's good for the team. Like, the Chiefs clearly have, the Chiefs have clearly done better when they have a chip on their shoulder, and they can play this "nobody believes in us" mantra. That seems to drive them. So I don't want them to just be. I mean, if they're undefeated right now, and winning games like Baltimore wins games, and everyone's just saying they're the best team and all this and blah blah blah. I don't think that's the best thing for this team. So I think you need things like this to keep the chip on their shoulder, both for, Mahomes obviously is driven by it. So I think he's, eating all this up. Like, for us to be able to win games and Mahomes have these bad stats where he can still get called out and people, win a real ring, Pat. Maybe throw some more touchdowns than interceptions, Pat. So as long as he can get driven by that, another reason Bobby Stroop is the MVP of the Chiefs dynasty. But yeah, it's definitely driven by that. So it's fun. The games are more fun than if we're just blowing teams out, to be honest. I mean, there's way more to talk about. We can kind of talk about what's wrong with the team, kind of question, instead of just like, well, we're the best team, which, I think we're getting there, but there's a longer explanation to get to the Chiefs being the best team.
Yeah, I guess I just
it's also leading to even Travis Kelce goes on the post game last night and he's apologizing to the fans for the offensive performance. And I'm like, I started looking up stats because I'm just like, I am not disappointed in the offense. I think they are,
stick with us.
Yes,
I'm hanging on every play and I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, the point totals from them, 30 points, 27, 28, 26 in the last 4 weeks. I value the consistency there. So they're not going to be lighting it up, the style of offense they're playing. So I don't think they have to apologize for playing this different style of offense. My favorite stat, obviously, points per drive. They're at 10. They're probably at 10 drives last night. It depends on how you want to classify the 3-play run drive and then the drive with 20 seconds left. So I would put it at 10 drives and they score 30 points, which is 3 points per drive, which is the magic number as we talked about last week. So they're still efficient and getting the job done, clearly, in my opinion. And yet they're out here apologizing to the fans for their lackluster performance, for not putting up 40 points. So just the narrative versus what I think is happening on the field is wild to see.
I mean, look, it is interesting that people just don't think the Chiefs have enough sizzle or whatever. I mean, you're talking about last night, Travis Kelce, after the football game on national TV, sitting at the desk with SVP, and he says, "Stick with us, Kansas City. We're going to get things figured out," you know? And like, he was kind of commenting on the fact that, like, hey, Hopkins just got here, sort of thing. Like, you know.
I think it was also like he fumbled in the game. He fumbled in the game. I think he was almost kind of apologizing for that a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though he was 14 catches, or the first receiver with over 35 years old to catch 14 balls in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Fun stat.
Tied his single game career high. I think he'd only ever been targeted 16 times or more, like one other time, maybe in a regular season game. I think he said it in the playoffs a couple times, maybe. But it's crazy to me that he's apologizing after Hunt, Kelce, and Hopkins combined for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, they scored 30 points. I know 6 of them were in overtime, but like, there were some stretches, and again, I'm getting away with the Chiefs had 10 points when they entered the fourth quarter because they scored that touchdown like 2 plays into the fourth quarter. It's cherry picking a little bit. I get it, right?
Juking the stats. We love to juke the stats. Nothing funner than juking the stats.
Well, you know, I mean, that drive started in the third quarter and went on for like 6 minutes of the third quarter. So, but I don't know, man. This did not feel like the game that they needed to be apologizing for. In fact, I feel like they're clicking in a way that is really exciting. That was DeAndre Hopkins' second game as a Chief. He's been here for 10 days.
Let's get into Hopkins, but before that, just think of like being like an opposing fan right now and watching this. Like, that's the other fun part about winning unimpressively. You know, if you're watching a dominant team, it's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. They're a lot better than if you're an opposing fan watching this team right now. I would just be irate. Like, you're watching this week after week. Like, oh man, they are so not. They are not good. I watch this team every week. They're not good. They can lose this week, and then they come out here and they're losing. Like, oh wait, it's gonna happen this week. It's gonna happen, and then they come through at the end, and it's happened so many times in a row now. I can't imagine being a fan and cheering against this. I would be cheering against them so damn hard. I would be bitching about any calls that go their way, whether it's you know, balanced or not. I would hate Taylor Swift. I would hate this team. I would be irate watching this. I mean, I've kind of lived it with watching the Patriots, and I think it might be even more so, at least in a small, you know, this sample size of like the last 14 games that we've seen. And it's just it would drive me nuts cheering against this team. Well, which is great if you're cheering for this team.
It's weird because, like, look, when people want to talk about, like, you mentioned the Lamar is the scariest, or the Ravens are the scariest, or whatever like that. I think that was Ryan Clark. But there's a lot of people that like are talking about, oh my God, Lamar's playing the best football of his life, and here are all these stats, and he's just unreal. And when I hear conversations about a team that has 3 losses, 3 games back of the Kansas City Chiefs, I feel like Shooter McGavin. I'm like, oh, and where are they in the win-loss column? Oh, okay, cool, right, moving on. You know, I'm like, I'm sorry. So Lamar might win his 3rd MVP. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I was too busy winning. Like, I know. Nick Wright obviously has grabbed the headline on the Chiefs are in their championship era, not like the style points and whatnot. Like, that's kind of how he's tried to reclaim this idea that the Chiefs are not impressive in the way that they're winning. But I don't know, man. I watch a game like last night, and don't get me wrong, it's the first opportunity, second technically opportunity, but first opportunity for D-Hop to kind of like stretch himself out a little bit. And I realized while I'm watching the game last night and watching him tally up 8 or 9 catches for close to 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, I'm watching this guy and I'm saying to myself, if he wasn't already, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a Hall of Famer when the Chiefs are done with him. Like, that is what is going to happen. And even if he's not here next year, like, I'm looking at this season, I'm looking at this team, and the Chiefs have another Hall of Fame player on their team, another Hall of Fame player on their offense. and I get to watch Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins line up next to each other, like in the slot, over the until this season is over. And I'm just absolutely thrilled with that acquisition. And I'm looking at it after 2 weeks. And I mean, maybe there's a little bit of recency bias in here because he played such a fantastic game on Monday Night Football against the Buccaneers. But man, I'm suddenly looking at this offense in a completely different light. And nationally, I think if people are honest, they are too. Because everyone was talking last night, but whether it was, your friends and family members or national media, oh, wait, so this is what it looks like when you give Mahomes a real receiver? And yeah, buddy, I mean, what can you say about DeAndre Hopkins in Monday Night Football?
Yeah, so I was looking at, it's interesting you brought up the Hall of Fame. He's 23rd all-time in NFL receiving yards right now. Right behind Art Monk, who's in the Hall of Fame, ahead of like Charlie Joyner, ahead of Michael Irvin, ahead of Calvin Johnson, who had a shorter career. But he is kind of getting on the cusp of, he is essentially 1,200 yards away from a level where everybody's in the Hall of Fame. So he is getting close to those numbers where, he will get thrown in, especially if he starts adding some playoff moments to his career, which he doesn't have much of whatsoever. I think he only has one career playoff touchdown. I think it was against the Chiefs in that 24-0 lead back in 2019. So yeah, if he can add some playoff moments to that, he might be trending towards that. But yeah, it was great to see. Look, I've had questions about DeAndre Hopkins. I think you got to see DeAndre Hopkins, what he does best on that Mahomes throw, where it's just like Mahomes is in incredible trouble. There's Hopkins. I'm going to put the ball up and, see what happens here. And Hopkins comes down with that ball. In terms of, I don't know if any other Chiefs receiver of this era would. Tyreek's a smaller guy. He's the other great receiver, obviously. But Hopkins, the way he can go up and get the ball, I'm very curious if that leads to more of those types of plays as they develop this trust. They're developing trust in terms of, finding holes in zones, the little slant at the end zone, which was really horrible defense from the Buccaneers. I don't know if it'll always be that easy, but it was really great that it looked that easy. Hopefully it stays that easy. But only the second contested catch of the entire season from the Chiefs. Sam McDowell's really on this stat along with me. Mahomes and Andy, the offense they don't throw those types of balls. They don't draw up those types of plays. And it'll be interesting to see if those start to develop over time because he's so good at it. And that can become a weapon for them, whereas they believe it's easier to scheme people open and throw to the open receiver. It was another fun stat. The most improbable completion of Mahomes' career since Week 16, 2018. So I don't know exactly how they chart that. It's a next-gen stats thing, so it's a legit stat. But it's just in terms of, defenders around him, all kinds of factors go into that, I'm sure. But it was I think it was 12% was the odds of that being completed when he threw it or something.
Dude, that play was nuts because he jumped into pressure to whip that ball into triple coverage.
Yep. Yeah, first you're thinking what a great catch, and then you're watching the replay what a great throw. Man, that play just absurd.
That was a no, yes. Yeah. That's what that one was. I mean, dude, I really thought watching him last night, I don't even really care who else is playing receiver with him. I mean, do I want Juju out there too? Yeah. Oh man. You had Juju, a truly healthy, functioning Juju to this offense. I don't actually think we need to see Juju until maybe get a game or two in December. Just get right. You're fine. Honestly, we could maybe potentially get to a point where they just trade off games. Hey, Hop, you're active this week. And then next week we'll go to Juju, and then next week we'll go back to D-Hop, and we can just let them trade off having these huge games, and then no one ever gets to see them on the field at the same time. And then we unleash that in the playoffs, and we load manage both of them on the way to, our three-peat. I think you're taking notes, Brett. Are you taking notes?
I think it would be great if they could share hamstrings too. So we could choose the healthy hamstrings and, choose to put it inside Hopkins or something for the playoff game, because a little bit better than Juju. the hamstrings, they kind of creep up on him. I also, last point on Hopkins, I think it's taking the addition of him. First off, I don't know if we win that game last night without Hopkins. Second off, it takes a lot of pressure off Xavier Worthy, who I think is struggling a little bit right now in terms of if we did not add Hopkins to this group and that we are relying on Worthy and we're seeing what we're seeing, I think he gets under a lot of heat because he's a first-round receiver and it's like, dude, you're the guy that has to step up here. Whereas now he can kind of take a back seat. Kelsey coming out with a strong game, Hopkins there, and he can slowly develop and continue to be, provide the strength that we know he has, which is deep speed, and kind of develop the rest of his game at a normal rate instead of like an extended rate where we would need that if we didn't have Hopkins right now, because we would need him to step up if we didn't have Hopkins.
That was one of the big things that we were kind of trying to hit last week, was just this idea that having the alpha, right? Having someone like Hopkins that can, in a way, carry that receiver room, both on the field and off the field, it just relieves so much pressure from Xavier Worthy. You couldn't tell that it relieved any pressure from Worthy last night, the way that he played. Not worthy of much conversation. It was rough out there for old boy, but he'll be fine. He will be fine. He's on a 4-game stretch right now. Carrington tweeted out that he's 10 catches for like 80-something yards over the last 4 weeks. It's not great. And if you put the 4 worst Rashee Rice performances together, not just 4-game stretch, but cherry pick the 4 worst games, he had 10 for about 95. It was like 10 more yards than Xavier Worthy's at. So, I mean, he is in the worst stretch of this still kind of young season. And he's a rookie, and he's 21 years old, and he's small, and all these different things, right? There are plenty of reasons for it. I think he's going to be fine. If he gets his feet in bounds and scores a touchdown last night, nobody's even thinking about him the same way that they do.
Yeah, the problem with that play, too, is that he just didn't even seem like he tried to get, like he wasn't aware that he was even on the sideline or something. Like he didn't make an effort to get his feet in. Like if you're trying and like doing that, but it just didn't seem like he was even aware of it. So yeah, got to improve that a little bit. But he's the type of guy that, as we said before, he'll have a game here with 3 catches and 110 yards, which will boost all of his totals quite a bit. It won't be like a 60-yard kind of game slog for him. It'll be, the Deshaun Jackson type of 4 catches for 94 yards here all of a sudden. So not done him. A couple quick hitters here. We need to get to more stuff. I thought Wanya Morris looked good last night. I've seen a little bit of criticism from him, but I thought he looked solid. I mean, he got pushed back in the pocket a few times. I think he was getting some help from Andy, from the tight ends and running backs and stuff. But I don't remember any big pressures, really. I don't think any of the sacks were on him. I think people saw the weird chop block play and thought that was an indictment on him, but Jawan Taylor did it too. So I think that was like a miscommunication.
It's not a player choice. It's a call, either by the offensive line coach or like the play itself calls for it.
Yeah, usually it's a 3-step drop and Mahomes would throw it, but he kind of dropped back normally. So there was a miscommunication there at some point.
It's probably just a poor execution where like Mahomes at first didn't know how to slide, and right now Wanya doesn't know the technique to chop block the right way or whatever. That would be my guess, but
I don't think it was terrible though. Like I think he did it. If it was a 3-step drop, I think he would have been fine, but it wasn't. So then the guy just ran past him because he's laying on the ground. But yeah, I thought he opened up a huge hole in the run game at one point. I tweeted that out. So I thought a pretty good game from him, which I was excited. He was like the most anticipated player that I wanted to see coming off of that terrible game last week. Is the regression continue? Is this a weird thing where he struggles really hard against the Raiders? I thought he showed well in this game.
I mean, I think there's a tweet running around there somewhere. I don't know if it was like PFF Chiefs or if it was a next gen thing or something, but like Wanya was very highly rated in this game. He was like in the green in different categories. That's all I remember. I don't know what the categories were. They could be advanced stats or general stats or whatever.
That's from my guy Sean Newkirk. He tweets out the Chiefs grades after every single game. He kind of draws up his own graphics. A good little follow on there.
I was kind of thinking about like maybe trying to do like a segment involving Wanya. In the past we've had like a Sammy Watkins. We've had Where's Frank Clark? Where's Frank Clark? I was thinking about Wanya, And I was like, well, can I do Wanya watch? Kins, can I do where's Wanya?
Morris.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Morris.
Wanya watch, Morris. That's actually, that's an improvement. I don't know. I just, because it's like, I think he's going to continue to be part of the conversation. Like, we're monitoring the situation.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that, like, even if he finishes the year as the left tackle and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I don't know that I think he's the left tackle next year. Like, I still don't know if I would be convinced of it. He'd have to, like, go on a hell of a run. And maybe he's got that in him, right? It's totally possible. He did report eligible, like as an eligible receiver, meaning that they put Kingsley in the game. He did it like 4 or 5 different plays last night. So like Andy is kind of putting together a power package. It's totally possible that the Chiefs are like kind of developing that part of the game in response to the run success that they've been having. But also, and this is, kind of getting into the nitty gritty a little bit because 2 of these guys, we didn't see that much. But for people that may have missed it, both Jody Fortson and why am I saying Andrew Wiley? What is his name? Jared Wiley, TE12.
I'll tell you, Andrew Wiley's a stud. That's why you're saying his name.
Right.
Love Wiley.
He and Gretty playing together in that beautiful Tommy offense. It's good for them.
What did they used to call the it was like the pigs?
Oh, the Hogs.
The Hogs. Okay, yeah,
Hog
the
Mollies or something like that. Yeah, I mean, they're doing great. But the Chiefs lost both Jared Wiley and Jody Fortson to season-ending injuries just last week. Hendershot heard round the world. The guy that shoved Roquan Smith active for the first time in a Chiefs uniform. Caught a pass. I saw him like in there in crunch time in the fourth quarter. Maybe it's because he is, I think, a pretty versatile like blocker and receiver, well-rounded guy. Noah Gray didn't really do a whole lot last night. I mean, probably on the field a decent amount, but no production from Noah Gray. I'm thinking they're kind of shifting things. I mean, they had 4 tight ends on the 53, and they're down to 3 and Wanya Morris. So, maybe they're trying to mix him in a little bit, or really, I guess this is Andy's way of saying, yeah, we're going to rotate Kingsley in, when really it's just, here's 2 or 3 plays a game, pal. But yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't know what the segment should be called. Maybe it's, Wanya Watch Morris. I don't know.
I'm sending your suggestions in.
I'm just saying that I'm thinking about it. I don't know what it's going to be. Can we talk about the defense?
Let's talk about the defense. Where do you want to go? I've got some concerns.
I don't know whether to say Baker was awesome or the Chiefs defense just didn't have their best day. I think that the Chiefs allowed one more score than I thought. I thought the Chiefs would have gotten one more stop. I would say
it did. I mean, we're used to them getting that stop at the end there.
Right. I think that they came up one stop shy of what my expectation was. But something to keep in mind here. You mentioned that the Chiefs are the number 1 team on third down on offense. That's after that game. They were number 2 entering the game. And because the Chiefs went 12 of 18 on third down and the Bucs went 5 of 11, they swapped. The Bucs were the best team in the NFL on third down offensively entering that game. The Chiefs held them to 5 of 11. That's just under 50%. And again, the Chiefs went 12 of 18. It's 67%. But I mean, the Bucs, I thought, I don't know, honestly, it just felt like Baker being clutch and Kate Otten, doing Kate Otten stuff. I mean, at one point I was like, gosh, just cover him and tackle him. And that's all it really takes because their offense isn't doing anything. The Bucs did manage 95 rushing yards last night. If you count Baker rushes and Sterling Shepard rushes, just the running backs were at what do I have? 13 for 54. I don't think that the Bucs were super impressive, but honestly, man, I kind of think, and maybe it's just because I don't want to talk bad about the best defense in the NFL. I kind of think Baker's just having a really good season, man. And I want to just hat tip to Baker. He's a gamer. He's out there playing against Mahomes. The Bucks, when they lined up on the logo and all that stuff before the game, I'm like, we are going to fucking throttle these guys. And it's not how it played out, man. And honestly, kind of shout out to the Bucks. I thought it was a really great game and like fun at the end, and that's really that's kind of how you remember great games. But like, it was boring because teams weren't scoring, but man, they really stayed close, and I thought Baker was good.
Well, yeah, they were very game. They needed the game because they're kind of fighting for their playoff lives. I love this Bucks team. I've been very close to betting them to win the NFC multiple times this year. And as I think I said on the show last week, I had this game circled as the first Chiefs loss for a lot of the season because I just thought the Bucks were impressive. I mean, they're the team that's beaten Detroit this year, who is clearly the second best team, in my opinion, in the NFL. But they're just too injury depleted at this point. With Evans and Godwin out, it's kind of ruined the offense. And then they lose the third guy's McMillan. Is that his name? The other receiver?
McMillan. Yeah.
McMillan.
Because of a hammy. I think he tweaked it on Friday.
It's like practice, which kills you because then that's part of the game plan that just goes out the window. They're down corners on defense, which is the reason, the defense has struggled a lot of the reason. But yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, that's kind of the Baker Mayfield specialist to do stuff at midfield, either spiking flags or gathering before the game. But he's a gamer, man. I'm very impressed by Baker Mayfield. And just look at Cleveland, what happened there after he left. I mean, they dumped him for Deshaun Watson, and they would take Baker back in a Cleveland second.
Would be honestly probably thrilled to have Baker leading that franchise still. I mean, they probably have a couple more playoffs in there, I would think, the way that the rest of that roster seems like it's built up. And good for him. I mean, this is a guy that, had to bounce around to a few different teams. He started that game for the Rams like 2 days after he got there. And I think it was with Liam Cohen, who's now his offensive coordinator. And that's like kind of almost how they built their relationship a little bit. But I mean, this is not a Bucks podcast. It's not a Baker Mayfield podcast, but I really was kind of in this coin flip mode of like, did the Chiefs defense, not live up to the hype, not live up to the expectations here, or do I just want to take my hat off to Baker? And I think that's where I'm landing is you mentioned like the weapons are just nothing. I mean, it's Baker and Kate Otten and Sterling Shepard who
did some things. He did some things. Sterling Shepard, he's tough to guard on the little slot outs there. He'd get open. I always like Sterling Shepard, and he was college teammates with Baker Mayfield. I think that always kind of was. But my concern with the Chiefs defense is that with the Jalen Watson injury, I think there's just too many holes in the secondary right now. And you could even throw Najee Johnson in there as also being out. But yeah, I think, there's just too many holes. Like the linebackers and safeties are clearly struggling against tight ends this year. I thought Reed and Cook were great last night coming forward and making plays. When they were playing downhill, they were making a lot of plays like that. But still, I thought struggled in coverage. I thought Nick Bolton got picked on a good amount last night in zone coverage and just general guarding tight ends. Joshua Williams out there having penalties every single week. Maybe some breakdowns in zone. Doesn't always seem to know where to line up correctly. And then my biggest fear on the team, honestly, Roland Wallace. I don't think he's any good. I think he's going to start to get picked on. I don't trust him whatsoever. They started attacking him with a lot of, outs from the slot position, which is a tough position to play. As I've said for many years, slot cornerback lives matter. It's probably the toughest position to play outside of quarterback. There's nowhere to hide. You're just in the middle of the field. Receiver can cut either way. It is a tough position. Luckily, I think when Najee comes back, I think you go Williams and Najee on the outside and then McDuffie on the inside, or and then mix Shamari in there on the inside as well if you're going big nickel. So I think you need to get him off the field because I think he is the weakness on the defense. And in general, just in the secondary now, I'm worried because there's just too many holes out there. And now we know that with the trade deadline passed, this is what we got moving forward. This is what we've got on the defense in the secondary moving forward.
All right. My brain is going in 100 different directions because I'm thinking about this slot position and I'm like, man, Chris Roland Wallace is like their third or fourth option in the slot. And I don't disagree with this notion that maybe we need to get him off the field because he is such a weak link, even though last week we were talking about how like 10 and a guy is probably fine because of who these 10 are. I want to disagree with you because if Chris Roland Wallace is going to be counted on in the playoffs, he needs to fail now. He needs to have all of these learning moments. He needs to be doing this in regular season games, and getting those reps and trying to build chemistry with the other guys on the defense to know what to do when it's time to switch and all those, different little things that teams are going to force you to make the choice, and everyone has to execute it correctly, when it matters most. And so he needs the reps, right? Like, it's probably more important for Chris Roland Wallace to be getting reps than a guy that is probably better at it right now in Shamari Corner. We're talking about a guy that he was our starting nickel at the beginning of the year, and I don't think he's been demoted. I think this is them liking some things they've seen from Roland Wallace and trying to develop at least another option here, because he does give them a different look. I'm just as worried about Joshua Williams or Nazeeh Johnson or whomever, like any corner not named McDuffie, I don't feel good about, right? Like it is, in a lot of ways, it's a problem for that defense. But this is why you trade for Joshua Uche. This is why you hung on to Charles Omenihu when the Chiefs could have saved money by cutting an injured player, and they said, no, he's valuable enough that we want him. Like, the Chiefs are going to add, they had, I believe, Uche played like most of the third downs last night, is what I heard people saying.
Early on, at least. I noticed him all in the first half. I didn't notice so much in the second half.
Well, at any rate,
of course, the Bucs didn't have the ball, so there wasn't much snaps.
You're adding 2 pass rushers to this team. And if the Chiefs, as we mentioned last night with Uche, if they're going to start getting quicker wins too because of how explosive Uche is off the edge, but also just getting another body out there in a minute or two, and George is picking up the pace, man. He's batting down balls. He got another sack last night, and it was like a 6-second coverage sack. But George is putting in some work, and he was really abusing the right tackle last night. He's not always going to have as favorable a matchup maybe as he did. But I think we're starting to see him round into form a little bit. And they have a lot of weapons on that defensive line, man. The way that Warthog is playing, and obviously we've seen some good things from Felix. There's a lot of ammunition there. And I think that is essentially what Veach decided to do. Because if it was, I got to give up a 3rd, 4th, and 6th for Lattimore, or I got to give up just a 6-rounder for Joshua Uche, I will take this pass rusher and forget the corner. And they we're still probably trying to work up to the deadline to add a body there. But we've talked a lot about how adding a corner, it's nowhere near as easy as go get the quarterback. Having to learn all the different coverages and working together with all these different guys, it's complex back there, man. And so I hear you on Roland Wallace. I still trust this defense. I trust this defensive coordinator. I think that they have arguably the best collection of talent. They have unquestionably the best coach. And I'm really not worried about them. Every once in a while, you're going to give up some points. You gave up 24 to a Bucs team that has scored 40 multiple times this year with better receivers, mind you. But I don't know, man. That is an offense that can be and has been explosive this year. And so I don't feel bad that we held them to 24 in a game that we won. I'm happy to move on to the Broncos next week. And even though we might struggle to score a little bit, I know the Broncos are going to struggle to score against this team.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this last week, but I just wonder if this leads to kind of a philosophical change in the defense, if they start blitzing a little bit less, because I think the Bucs, I think their offense coordinators did a good job, but I think they had more answers against the Chiefs blitz than most teams do, because usually when Spags is emptying the bag, it's pretty automatic. At least it has been since the start of last year. And so with this depleted back end, I just wonder if offenses start to find more answers against the blitz. And so if the Chiefs have to shift off of that and start winning more with only rushing four against the offense, and start winning that way. So I that's kind of where I'm just keeping my eye on it, how it kind of plays out with the, because last year they got McDuffie and Snead, and then Jalen Watson's your third corner. That's that's an elite trio of corners and allowed you to do so much more up front in terms of blitz and hidden schemes and that kind of stuff. It just allows Spags to do so much more, whereas this year I think they're a little more handcuffed in what they can do. And that ultimately was the strength of the team last year. I mean, if you got in 3rd and long against that team last year with Spags dialing it up, the Chiefs were going to win those downs. And I think we're seeing a little bit less of that this year. So it's not, it hasn't bit them at all yet. Obviously, they haven't lost a game, and the defense is still, holding points, teams under 28 points. We should say 29 straight games now, allowing teams under 28 points. That is the 2nd longest streak in the last 30 years. I think they tied the Ray Lewis Ravens with that streak. And the longest, I think, this was on First Things First with Nick, I think the longest was an Andy Reid coach team in the early 2000s. So I think they have the longest streak of holding teams under 28 points. So just
Johnson and those Eagles teams, which were phenomenal. I mean, that guy is the father of modern defenses in a lot of ways.
So just keep my eye on the back end and seeing how this progresses, seeing if they start attacking different guys and seeing what they do with that 11th man, because I think they need to figure out what they want to do. Because I don't trust Chimichanga or Roland Wallace in that slot position. Neither of them are quick enough to guard these little slot receivers that can start picking them on these 3rd and 4s, which is it becomes big. I mean, think of like the Patriots loss in 2018 in the AFC Championship. It's Edelman on 3rd and 4. We couldn't stop it. And so those little things can become big things in the playoffs.
That's that position that I talked about at the beginning of the year, right? Like, we've got all these different options. We don't know what it's going to look like. We were really hoping that at some point they were going to go to Watson, Williams, McDuffie. And so maybe Spags is going to, all right, if I want to put my best 11 out here, he's going to do like you said, and it's probably going to be like a Williams, Johnson, and slide McDuffie into the slot. But God, man, I mean, he's been so good no matter where you play him. There's so many different options there. If we're looking for like someone in the secondary that could emerge for this team, because you said, as we said, we got past the trade deadline, there's nobody coming. Your options here are pretty limited too, because we're talking about Keith Taylor, who's not getting much run just yet. But again, this was one of McDuffie's teammates. He's 6'3", 200 pounds, 25 years old, got some skills. Jaden Hicks is another option that he's starting to get a little bit more involved defensively. I think that technically he might be one of those guys that can cover a tight end or maybe cover a slot receiver or something. So there's another option in there potentially. One more name that I want to toss at you just to see if you're interested. I saw that Mike Edwards was going to get released, and a lot of Chiefs fans were like, here he is. This is going to happen. I don't know if they need him. It's not that I don't want him, but I'm like, another safety and he will not play corner, right? He might free up safeties to do some things if you want to try to utilize him and put a roster spot there. I mean, there are, I'm sure, 5-6 different guys that I would rather have Mike Edwards than this guy on my roster. But I don't know. What do you think there with that?
Well, I think the bigger hole is at corner, not at safety. So I think he could help. I think the question they got to ask themselves is if they trust Chimichurri. Because I think he could kind of fill in and kind of play those snaps. You're not going to put him in the slot. The slot is the problem, because the other corners they're playing are outside corners, the safeties, I don't trust them. And the McDuffie is kind of the only guy that can guard the slot, in my opinion, right now. The only guy on the roster, and we're kind of shitting on Roland Wallace. It's not necessarily fair to him because he's a 2024 undrafted free agent. Like this is above him right now. He needs a chance to develop. And so it's good for him that he's getting on the field, but this is a tough spot for him coming in as an undrafted guy playing right away. That's tough. That's tough. But yeah,
we don't like Chamari Connor in the slot at all.
I think he provides a lot of versatility, and I think he can do stuff. He can moonlight as a corner, I would say, and then he's a great blitzer. And he's a physical guy in the middle of the field. But if you're just saying they're playing man coverage and he's on the guy on the slot, they're going to throw at him. And we've seen that kind of already this year. I think his snaps have kind of gone down, and that's why they're trying different guys like Roland Wallace.
Yeah, that would be like a bad coverage linebacker. He's Nick Bolton in coverage, but he's Trent McDuffie when blitzing, right?
I got one more thing, kind of Broncos related, moving forward to next week. I have talked. I want to see this Chiefs offense operating as man coverage. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers play more zone than any team in the NFL. I think that's part of what led to this huge game. They trust Hopkins and Kelsey to find these holes in these zones, and Mahomes is too smart at finding holes in zones. And I think they were kind of able to sit back there and pick them apart. The question, in my opinion, to me, is can these guys beat man coverage? Is Kelsey still quick enough to beat it? Is Hopkins quick enough to beat it? Like I have questions against a man coverage team. The Broncos play lots of man coverage, one of the league leaders in man coverage. And so that's kind of the big thing I'm looking forward to this week is the Broncos. Even they struggled against the Ravens. I was kind of looking around on Twitter. A lot of Broncos fans complaining that they played too much zone against the Ravens. And they're like, we're way better in man than we are in zone. So I'm expecting the Broncos to come forward, challenge the Chiefs receivers in man coverage, and I'm very interested to see how the Chiefs respond to
that. Mahomes does not like throwing contested balls, as the stats have kind of borne themselves out, and really it's not a big part of this offense. So relying on all-pro, and I would argue, future Hall of Famers like Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins, I feel comfortable doing it. I also think that Broncos defense has maybe been exposed as not being nearly as good against the run as once thought. We'll see how some things play out there. That Broncos, they might be, I believe, and actually I want to say they were even crowned the good bad team this week on the BS. Yeah,
okay,
good
so,
bad team.
I mean, fuck, I thought they were the running for worst team in the NFL. Like I wasn't expecting the defense to be good. And even Bo Nix, like, the way he looked the first couple of weeks was truly terrible, and I think he's come on and become like decent, which is much better than I thought he would be.
Dirk, I've got one last thing before we go. I have a public service announcement to our friends here at KC Sports Network, particularly one Seth Kaiser. Seth, don't retweet me anymore. Please don't. Last night,
dude,
I'm late in the third quarter, and I said something about how the Bucs had been allowing 34 points a game, and the Chiefs only had 10. And Seth retweeted me.
Yep.
And in about 30 seconds, I had a dozen dummies.
Nincompoops.
I mean, we are talking people trying to fire Andy Reid, people talking to me about it's the Matt Nagy curse. It's this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, I mean, because they have the worst rush offense in the league. I said, what? What's happening here? Seth, I love you, man. And I like every time that Seth or anyone with, a bigger account retweets anything that I do, suddenly, hey, I got 10 new followers and that's cool. I want a small account. I don't want the attention. Like I don't really want it, because a lot of attention is negative attention. And I don't even want to see people, when you tweeted something about the analytics, and I said, isn't this a reversal? And then two guys had a conversation for the next 3 days, and I could mute this conversation. I could.
I did.
I could.
Oh man, I totally agree. I do. I get excited because here's the some extra attention, and then you see the depths of Twitter. And oh man, the depths of Twitter knows no bounds. When you have a tweet that goes big and you see the kinds of people that are out there, my lord, man, the depths of Twitter is it's like the depths of the ocean. Like you don't want to go that deep. You don't want to go into the deep ocean. Enjoy the beach. The beach is great. Have that be your ocean experience. Don't go diving into the deep ocean because you don't know what's down there, and you don't want to know. It's terrible down there. Dark.
For everybody that works with us at KCSN that is still listening at like the hour 10 mark of this, season 13, episode 14 or something of Amateur Hour, don't retweet me. Don't do it. Please don't. Especially like during a game. Definitely don't do it then when everybody's eyes are on on the tweets.
I saw your tweet and I was like, man, why is this getting so much traction? Like I just saw all the replies and then I opened it and Seth is kind of tagged. Seth is also tagged in it. So you just look at all the replies like, oh my good God.
It was not great.
Good God.
It was not great.
Like, if Nick retweets you, if you get a Nick Wright retweet, oh man, we wouldn't believe.
That's messy.
50 people personally attacking Nick Wright in my mentions, like, God, guys, relax.
You retweet something and they're like, his nose. My God, man. Comparing him to Cousine and stuff. Like, it's just,
that was awesome.
That was really great.
That's the chef guy, right?
Yes.
I didn't know who that was until
he's good dressing up for Halloween and stuff. That's great.
We love Nick Wright. We love the Kansas City Chiefs, and we love you. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He's his Dirkness, and this has been another episode of Amateur Hour, and this is where his Dirkness says,